Learning outcome 3, you need to be able to plan the pre-production of a media product. So it's learning about exactly what people do during the pre-production part of any media production and understanding like the different tools that you can actually do during that process. So the first thing to look at is the different planning tools. So that's looking at the software that's available, how to do scheduling, what milestones and contingencies are. So first of all, you need to be aware that there is something called project management software. So no matter what production you're working on, it's still part of a project. And there is software available, all different types of software really, but you can get open source ones, which are basically free. You can get paid proprietary software, which costs quite a lot of money, but it helps to manage your whole project and helps to make things a lot easier. Essentially what it does is the project manager, who's like the person in charge of the project, they can collaborate with their teams and put together like this production schedule, I guess, which allows them to go through and make sure that all the goals are met and that things are done on time, and allows them to manage all the resources and costs. So the best thing about project management software is it allows you to produce reports. So you could do like a daily report, you could do a weekly report, you could do a report just about resources, a report just about one particular thing, which makes it a little bit easier for all the people working on the project. It also allows you to allocate resources to the relevant people. So you can click on a resource and then highlight it and give it to one particular person that's going to be responsible. It also allows you to look at the whole project and try and identify where there are any gaps and fill them in. So essentially what you've created is a production schedule. Now this is like a major tool that you can use during the production of a project. Basically what you're doing is you're putting together an entire big schedule of what's going to happen from the moment you start the production until it's finished. And it's all in part of one big, huge planning document. Now this document has got all of the key dates in and all the milestones, as they call them. It'll have your final deadline, all like the kind of important information regarding dates. It's also going to have links to each individual call sheet, so you can click on a day and see that broken down call sheet for each thing. Often these production schedules are put together from the end and working backwards. So you think, what's my deadline? What is it I want to achieve? And you work back, putting together a list of all the tasks that you need to complete. Once you've got your task list put together, then you can start allocating resources to each task. You can start putting in contingencies in case something goes wrong with one of those tasks. You can give each task a time scale. How long is it going to take? When does it need to be completed by? A milestone is a fancy word for a key date that's part of your production. So any important dates that need to be met are called milestones. So that could be all pre-production needs to be completed by this date, all filming needs to be finished by this date, all post-production and CGI needs to be done by this date. They are your milestones, they're your key dates that need to be met, otherwise your project's going to go off track. Your key dates are usually set prior to start, and then obviously you could be updated as you go along and make sure things are met, make sure things are accurate and up to date as you go through. Contingency is a fancy word for a backup plan. So during the production of anything really media related, a lot of things can go wrong. When it's things like movies and there's a lot of personnel involved, actors and cast and crew, anything can go wrong, because if somebody's ill or can't do something or gets injured, then you need a backup plan. For example, say you're making a film with Tom Cruise in and he gets injured. What do you do? If he can't do any filming for 4 or 5 weeks, what are you going to do to make sure that you make sure that that film is completed on time? Essentially, a production schedule all comes down to the timescales really. If you know how long you've got to produce a product, then that has a big influence over what you're actually going to come up with. Basic projects can be done using some spreadsheet software, and all you need to do is create a Gantt chart, list all of your tasks down the left hand side, and then you either put your dates in or timescales for each particular task. Use coloured boxes to say this is going to take 3 hours, this is going to take 4 hours, and so on. And any tasks that can be done at the same time, you can list them underneath each other. Timescales are absolutely vital to the success of a product. So what you've got to think of is, if I've got plenty of time to do things, then you're not going to have a problem. If you have quite a strict deadline, then you can't afford to make any sort of errors at all. Otherwise, your production's not going to get done on time. One other thing with timescales is it generally means that you have a lot of regular meetings with the producer and all the other cast and crew, just to make sure everything's going according to plan. A really important key word for this exam is logistics. Now, this is basically the term used to describe all of the organisation. So anything that needs to be organised, where paperwork needs to be completed and things need to be set up and put in place, it falls under the category of logistics. So it includes things like all the personnel, the cast and crew, the props, the equipment, the locations, any transport that you need, food, everything that needs to be organised and make sure that everything runs smoothly. Now, logistics are vital to ensure the success of a project, and if you get them wrong, it can cost a lot of money to try and rectify. What a lot of people don't realise is just how much organisation goes into a production. So for a movie, for example, because you're filming at so many different locations, every location needs to be organised. Every location needs to have somewhere where people sleep, where they need food being provided for them, they need drinks and refreshments provided, they need toilets and shower facilities organised, they need accommodation if you're staying over for a week or two. Everything needs to be organised, and that would all fall under the category of logistics. Another vital tool for the success of a project is the type of research that you do and how in-depth that you go into. So we're going to need to look at the 3 different types: audience, market research, and production research. So research is very, very important. It needs to be carried out during the planning and pre-production phase. Research can be really time consuming and resource heavy. In other words, costs a lot of money and takes a lot of time to actually carry out research. Often in parts of TV and film companies, well, any media company really, they can use a specialist research company. So examples of these are Ipsos Mori and Touchstone Research. Now, this saves a lot of time and money really if you try to do it all yourself, because these are experienced companies. They do this kind of thing day in, day out, and are really experienced at doing it. So you could hire another company to go and carry out some research for you, and then you can just read over everything that they've provided back for you. Audience research is pretty much the first type of research that you're going to do as part of your production. You need to think about, who am I aiming this product at, because it's one of the biggest factors that will influence your production. Now, the purpose of audience research is to make sure that the product gets targeted in the right way towards the right audience. Now, the size of the audience, together with their preferences, you need to gather all that information and analyse it. You need to think about, how big is my age range, how many genders, what is the sexuality, all the kind of things that you've learned in previous learning outcome. We need to look at those particular features and analyse them. The main thing that it comes down to essentially is money. That's the most common kind of reason for producing products, isn't it? Is for money. So how willing are the audience going to be to actually purchase your product? If you do research and they're not interested at all, then it's not really a viable product to go ahead with. The way that you gather research for audience research is usually through primary sources. So this would be like surveys, questionnaires, and focus groups. If you target your specific audience group and you create a focus group with your target audience in, you can ask them about their views directly and get some real quality feedback. This can have a huge influence over the production. Now, market research is looking at what else is out there, what else is in the market. So the media market is really crowded. If you look at how many films are being released on a weekly basis now compared to maybe 20, 30 years ago, it's a lot bigger. So the media market is really crowded, and you've got to think about what other products are being created at the same time. So the first kind of questions you're asking yourself is, are there any other similar products? How successful are they? What features have they got? Who are they aimed at? How much money have they made? How much money can be projected from our new product? What's the difference? So, for example, say you wanted to make a film about a post-apocalyptic Earth. Think how many films there are now that have come out where the world ended and there's some sort of zombie apocalypse or some sort of nuclear war that's taken place. What's going to make your film successful? You've got to pick out the strengths of the other films, the weaknesses of the other films, and how you could address them. And you've got to think, what's going to make our product different? What's going to give it like a fresh look so the audience are interested? Now, market research can be done by targeting customers directly. So you think about who your audience is and you try and directly target them using questionnaires. Now, this could be with open-ended questions or closed-ended questions, and that will help you to gather completely different types of information. The advantage of open-ended questions is you're going to get some quality feedback. You get reasons of why people like it or why they might not like it, but it takes a long time to analyze them. If you use closed questions, then we can quantify the data. You can see what people's responses are. You can make graphs from it, and it's easy to kind of quantify what their views are on something. Now, the whole idea of market research is that it's going to study information that others have gathered if you use secondary sources. So you could already look at information that other people have gathered rather than just doing it all yourself. You could use kind of analysis that's already taken place about other products and customers and use that to your advantage. So the most common use of this is what you studied in Unit 1. You can look at data that's already been collected by other agencies and other companies and allow that to kind of have an influence over what you're creating. So finally, production research. You have to wait until you've done your audience and market research to start researching what your actual product's going to be like. You need a real clear outline of who your audience is, and you need a real clear outline of what the market is like and what you're aiming for with your product. Once you know what your product is got to be, then you can start doing research for the production. So the idea behind production research is you're trying to collect source material that can be used. So for example, say you're making a movie like the JFK movie by Oliver Stone. They will have done a hell of a lot of research into the JFK assassination. They'd have gathered as many files as they possibly can. They'll create kind of a list of viable sources, things that they can use, things they can't use, things that people will be interested in, things they won't be interested in. And you're basically just gathering as much information and as much kind of source material as you can to create the movie. Now, this is the most important thing if you're creating some sort of documentary or a film that's based around real life. Production research also is going to help you see how viable the project is. So you've got to look at it and think, is this going to be possible? Is this going to be possible? And doing research into it is going to help you do that. Research for the production would also include things about the locations and resources. Doing research into a location where you could film is all part and parcel of it.